Kimbalin Kelly has been appointed Chief Operating Officer at the College of Early Childhood Educators. With over 20 years of senior leadership experience in both the not-for-profit and professional services sectors, among other areas, Kimbalin brings expertise in operations, organizational design, and enhancing both the client and employee experience. Among her leadership positions, she spent a number of years at the Ontario Chiropractic Association, where she focused on member programs and business operations, and has served on multiple boards, including the Mississauga-Halton Local Health Integration Network and the Halton Region branch of the Canadian Mental Health Association. BIPOC Executive Search invites you to join us in congratulating Kimbalin, and thanks you for tuning into this edition of 5 Questions. Hello, Kimbalin. Thanks so much for joining me in this edition of 5 Questions. I am so looking forward to this discussion.
Well, I'm very excited as well, so it was a pleasure.
Excellent, excellent. Well, let's jump right in. So, the College of Early Childhood Educators is such an important organization. So, my first question is, what is it about the organization that drew you to apply for the Chief Operating Officer role?
So like with any role that I might pursue, there are sort of 2 key factors that I look for before putting myself forward for any position. And the first, which is to me one of the more important ones, is where is that value alignment and impact on society? How does this organization, how is my role going to potentially affect change or influence some sort of social betterment or some kind of impact to people's lives? So that's the first piece. And the second piece then is the people, it's the culture. Who am I going to be working with? How do we complement each other? Do we have aligned values? Do we have a shared sense of what we believe the workplace should feel like, should look like? And do we have a really shared sense too as to how we do our work? It's not just why we're doing it or what we're looking to achieve, but also how we're going to do all of that. And when I was reading the brief for the College of Early Childhood Educators, I was really struck by the way the values and the culture and the sense of the leadership and the employees, it's like it jumped off the page at me. Some of the language, they had language like cohesion, had language such as impact, and wanting to ensure that future generations have the right start in life. And that it just really spoke to me as an organization in both terms of their impact and what really motivates them. But the fact that the cohesion was such an important factor and the profile of who they were looking for also provide insights to me as to who they were as well as individuals. And I saw a real connection there on multiple levels. And that really compelled me to want to ensure I got the role.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, and I actually remember just going back to language, one of the words that really stood out for you was kinship, right? When we were talking, you were saying, I don't see the word kinship used often in a candidate profile. And so clearly that was something among the other things that you brought up, like cohesion, that was something that really drew you to this.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And then meeting them for the first time, it just solidified it.
Yeah, exactly. Let's jump into our next question. So, we often hear how important it is for employees to have executive mentorship, someone who will take a member of staff under their wing and help facilitate their success. So, was there someone earlier in your career that played this role for you? And how did this individual show you their support?
I've been very fortunate. I've had throughout my career and at different milestones of my development to where I guess I am today to have had different people, and I've learned different things from each. I would say though that the person who is most impactful for me and has really truly been a constant influence throughout my career was somebody I had early on in my very first management role. I was on board for maybe about a month, and we had to downsize. It was during a recession. And so within my first month, I had to do a lot of layoffs. I'd never done this before. I was kind of nervous and I was just very unsure. And she said a couple of things to me, but the two things that really stand out that have sort of been carried with me through all my roles is humanity and empathy. And she said, any interaction you have with somebody, whether it's positive feedback, constructive feedback, or in this kind of situation where you're having to lay someone off due to the recession and so on and so forth, the humanity that you can bring to the table just speaks volumes, right? And you can never lose sight of that sense of humanity and the empathy in every conversation you have with somebody. You just don't know what kind of day they're having. So if you bring humanity and empathy to the table every single time, not only will you have a positive impact or influence or just make a difference in someone's day, it actually makes a difference in your own day and your own career journey. And that's really stuck with me. It sounds perhaps a little bit, I don't know, it's not concrete. It's not technical. It wasn't about a technical skill or strength. But I will say that it's something that no matter where I go, whether it's an interview, whether it's just a dialogue with a colleague or any environment, I always sort of keep that in the back of my mind. And the way she demonstrated her support was also through empowerment. So she provided me the opportunities to make decisions and also then to be able to exercise that muscle, that strength around humanity and empathy in managing some of the decisions I would have made. Some were good, some were not so good. But that also came accountability. And when a person takes accountability and employs humanity and empathy in their work, I have found it's been very beneficial for me with my relationships and with my ability to sort of move the needle on things that we need to move the needle on.
Yeah, that's great. Sounds like this person that you are talking about exemplified what we want leaders to exemplify today, but back then, right? Like you hear about
Yeah.
human-centered leadership, and at that time, perhaps people didn't have that top of mind, but it's certainly top of mind for many people now. So when you say that humanity piece, that empathy piece, that's
Mhm.
all wrapped up in that human-centered leadership discussion.
And I think I should really just demonstrate how perhaps progressive she was or ahead of the times, if you will.
Mhm.
We're talking about the early 90s, right? So
Yeah.
if I do the
Yeah.
math, I don't know what the math is, but it's a long time ago.
Well, thank goodness for her, because wow, you are an incredible leader, which actually is a great segue into this next question. So, your chief operating officer and COOs are generally responsible for hiring a lot of people. Are there 2 or 3 qualities that you believe are important for applicants to convey in an interview when they're vying for a position?
I think that for me, as someone who's interviewing, and I think this would be true for most people in my role, is that sense of authenticity. And I feel that we hear that a lot. And I don't mean that as a buzzword, but it really is the most accurate word to describe it. I just think when an applicant recognizes, and oftentimes they don't even know all their own strengths or all their own qualities. So the more authentic you are, really it's a gift to the person in the room with you, because you may not even realize what you bring to the table sometimes, because we oftentimes, we think, oh, well, I'm applying for this role and I have these competencies and here's how I would answer this question. And so you're very well prepared to maybe technically around the skills and looking at the match. But the other piece of it is being your authentic self, because what will come through there are your insights, are your values, it's how you approach your work, how you work with people, how you're relating to people, even in that moment. And I think that's very, very key. Also, too, should you then move forward with that organization, you want to know as much about them as they know about you. And for success on both ends, if you're both authentic, then it's just, it can only thrive, right?
Yeah.
And again, why would you shortchange yourself? Because I truly believe that many people don't realize all of the assets they have, that they bring to the table. I think we tend to maybe focus on certain things just because we're now looking for a particular role and we're reading what the real description says.
Right.
But I think authenticity is really key. And it's curiosity. Curiosity can be whether it's professional curiosity or curiosity throughout your life in terms of adventures you might go on, whether it's cooking or whatever it might be. But what curiosity does is it provides a bit of an insight in terms of your how you engage in the work that you do or the people you work with. It's that it speaks to your sense of open-mindedness, and it speaks to how broad your thinking may be in terms of whether it's working through to a solution, building a relationship, or even about yourself, being curious about yourself. So curiosity and authenticity, I find, are not often the qualities that people tend to portray, but when we get there in the interview, it's just so revealing and so refreshing.
Yeah, yeah, I love those two words. I mean, whenever we are preparing people for interviews, essentially what we're trying to do is we're trying to make sure that they come into the interaction as relaxed as possible. And you are as relaxed as you can be when you feel like you're being yourself, right?
Yeah.
And so I love when you say authenticity and curiosity. I mean, those are two great ways to remind people to come in with those qualities to make sure that you're coming across as relaxed and who you are. It's really, really great. So can you describe your career in 2 words and then explain why you've chosen those 2 words?
Well, no is the quick answer.
Unless you
But
want
I
to
will do.
use unless you want to use authenticity and curiosity as your 2 words.
It's all about purposing. No. So the short answer is no, but I will comply. um, I'll say what comes off the top of my head, and sometimes your instinctive response is probably the most real response, and it's fortunate, right? Why do I feel fortunate, and why would I choose that word? You know, every person you meet, whether it's on public transit or in the workplace, whether they're a longer term colleague or coworker, everybody has like a role or an influence, or they've had some kind of contribution to the person you are today, right? Because those interactions help shape you, whether it's your thinking, whether it's an experience, but everything helps shape you. And I feel I've been very fortunate in my career because not only have I been able to work in several different industries due to the nature of my role, the work is transferable. So by working in such a diverse set of industry, I've also met an incredibly talented, interesting, just a tapestry of people who I think have really shaped me. And I'm not sure I would be as useful or as effective as I am in my role today if it wasn't for the last 30 years of people I've interacted with, that I've had experiences with. And that's why I feel that I've been very fortunate. I've been fortunate to be able to just cross sectors from finance and banking to charity, cultural charity, to hospice care, which is a different kind of way of demonstrating your empathy and humanity, over to dealing with like supporting creators like artists and ensuring that their rights are protected for the work that they produce. So it's been an incredible journey. It's been one to me of great fortune. I think I've been just gifted with all of these experiences, and sometimes I don't know that I've given back as much as I've received. Just another reason why the term fortunate comes to mind. And I don't know if I come up with the second one, but will one be okay? Can we compromise?
Absolutely. And that one that you chose is a really, really powerful word. And the way that you spoke to the word fortunate is also very powerful. So thank you for that. So, in terms of the final question, Any final words of inspiration for anyone interested in being in a leadership role, a role where their voice can be part of making a difference?
I don't know that I have words of inspiration, but I just do hope that what I can say, what I will say, is that everybody in any role has the opportunity to be a leader. Whether your title is COO or something different, we all have the opportunity to be a leader and to impact and to affect change. It comes from the passion within. And I would say to people, don't let that fire go out. Don't lose your sense of passion. And I would say that let your passion, your curiosity, your values lead you. And whether the change you bring about, whether the influence you have to make a difference, even if it's one person or one moment in time, that is huge. It might be very huge to that individual. It might be huge in that moment in time, but it's huge. And if you have the good fortune to be able to take your passion, to take your curiosity, and create multiple moments, that's fantastic. I think there's nothing more you can possibly, I don't think anyway, aspire to. And that's what I would say. I would say just and then maybe it even sounds cliche, but the reason why it's a cliche is because it's true,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, your passion drives you. Like I've talked to people, employees, and when I hear their passion, I get excited.
Yes.
I'm like, yes. And so, yeah, I think your passion, your curiosity, and your values, if you just let that be your motor, and even if it's just, like I said, that one moment, you don't know the ripple effect of that moment,
Mm-hmm.
right? You don't necessarily understand the ripple effect of when you've affected one person's life and how that then goes on and multiplies over and multiplies over and multiplies over. So I think each of us have the opportunity, regardless of title or where we are in our life, to be a leader from within.
Wow. Wow, that is very inspirational, Kimbalin. That's so great. Thank you again. It's always a pleasure chatting with you. And I get so much out of this work when I'm able to speak to people like yourself who, when you say fortunate, like you learn from people and you have the interaction just kind of help you grow as a person. So thank you for doing that for me as well.
Well, thank you, Jason. I don't get enough of you. I wish I could do more recruiting.